Yes, YouTube, I hope that you're good. It's Ben Hawksworth at The Coach Consultant, and today's video is going to be very different to any other video that I've done. I'm actually going to be doing a step-by-step walkthrough of all of the paintings, all of the artwork, all of the post-it notes, and all of the little features that I basically have set up in my office space to keep me motivated and inspired on a day-to-day basis. And I think this is really important for fitness professionals to understand, because when you get into the industry as a coach, you potentially might have started in a gym, or you're writing plans from Starbucks or whatever it may be, but it's so important to make sure that you have got a efficient, motivating and inspiring working environment. Business is hard. Some days are easy, some days are tough, some days feel impossible, and it's really important to make sure that when you are turning up to do applied work, whether that is client check-ins or responses or developing your program, developing marketing, that you're actually in a space that keeps you motivated and inspired. So I'm just going to basically do a step-by-step walkthrough of my personal setup, and this will be the rationale for the choice, why I actually have it, where I have it, why I have it in the right position, because that's the level of detail that I go into. So I will have paintings set up in the right places, I'll have reminders set up in the right places, and every single thing that I basically look at and absorb in my office will have meaning and purpose associated, again, with keeping me going and trudging through the mud, the highs, the lows of obviously what business is going to throw at you. So again, very different. This is something that I'm really passionate about, and I'm actually going to really enjoy talking about all of these different variables that I've got set up. But the main thing that I want you thinking about is, what's my current workspace like? What's my current setup like? What have I got in my environment to allow me to stay motivated and stay inspired? It'll be a different video altogether in terms of walking through the actual technology that I have, but today is just about inspiration. Today's about what type of environment do I have. So what do I have in place which is going to affect my mood, my consistency and everything on a day-to-day basis? Because bottom line, that's what business comes down to, is who can stay working and in the mix and doing the do for the longest and doing the right things. So if you're in an environment, for example, where you are not motivated, you are not inspired, or you can't get stuff done, or you've got conflict of kind of distraction and everything else going on, again, it's really important to make sure you've got this right. And obviously the bonus addition of this, guys, is the fact that I obviously do have ADHD, which commonly for people will mean that you get distracted. My issue is the fact that I don't get distracted because I've got behavioural ASD as well. So environment is really important to me, because when I'm in this office and I'm in this space, I can produce a ridiculous level workload and output. But when I change this environment and I go and work somewhere else, I really struggle. So when I'm in this environment, I need to maximise my time. So that's what I want you to take away from this, is how can you maximize your time when you are doing applied work. So as a starting point, in my opinion, the single most important asset that you need in your office is, what are you looking at when you are not looking at your computer? So if I had my desk set up where I was looking outside and there were loads of people walking past, or cars or whatever it may be, I'm going to get distracted by that straight away. If I had my desk set up where I was looking out into the office and things were going off in the office, I'm going to get distracted by that. At the same time, if I was just looking at a plain white wall or black wall, I'm not going to be very motivated and inspired by that. So I've got my desk set up where I'm facing the wall, but as you'll basically see, I've got these paintings in front of me. I'll talk about my office screen in a second as well. These paintings were the most expensive and hardest to acquire, because I basically had them custom built based on what I knew I needed in my environment. And these paintings have a lot of deeper meaning to me in terms of my past, in terms of who I am as a person and everything else. So what you've got to look at this like is, I've positioned my desk basically so it's looking at this blue one, right? Because the blue one is the state that I want to stay in. When I'm looking at that, that's in my peripheral vision, and I need to understand that I also need that part of me in order to deliver on what I need to deliver on. So these two paintings are really important to me, because the blue over here basically represents neutral state, it represents flow state, it represents peace, it represents staying in control, right? On the left hand side, this is almost like the yin and the yang to it. So this is going to represent anger, it's going to represent motivation, it's going to represent resilience, it's going to represent fight. So in my opinion and in my experience, you need both of them to be a successful business owner, and also a person who can stay in control of their emotions. A lot of the time, people feel like you just need to be in a flow state to achieve what you want to achieve, and I don't agree with that in any way, shape or form. When you're looking at life and business, you need to have an element of resilience, you need to have an element of fight, you need to have an element of resistance. So I basically have these paintings, again, I had them custom painted and custom built for me, because it was really important to explain and articulate what I kind of wanted to be processing on a day-to-day basis. The aim of the game for me is to always stay in that neutral flow state, but I also need to understand there's going to be points where I need to be that person. And for me, what in my background, for example, I've been that person before as well, and I used to be more aligned to that than the neutral state. And what I've got to take into account now is I need to be in a neutral state. I need to be in a place of control, so I'm not coming in and I'm being reactive in any way, shape or form. But I spent a long time, especially in my early 20s when I was going through, again, becoming a man and learning about myself. I spent a lot of time in that space, so I also want to remind myself that it's not a way to conduct myself, it's not a way to be. In order to be a leader, in order to be an inspiration for my team and do what I need to do with business, I need to have a balance of both of these two areas. So that's the first important thing. So when you're looking at your current background or whatever you're looking at away from your computer, what does that mean to you? As you can see for me, that has a substantial amount of meaning. That has who I need to be on a day-to-day basis. It has my background, it has my history, who I want to aspire to be and how I want to deliver and how I want to perform, just by having these two paintings right in front of my face away from the computer. So at this point now, you have got an environment where you're not getting distracted, you're looking at the right things when you're not looking at your computer. Now it comes down to what's actually affecting your thought process in your immediate environment. So what is immediately around you in this space when you are locked in. So as you'll basically see with me, and I'll talk about my tech setup at another point, but I have a background which is the Colosseum, so the Roman Empire. Rationale for that is I'm just highly motivated by stuff like that. I love anything to do with Romans, anything to do with Spartans, anything to do with Mongols, anything to basically do with people who went through conquering and developments and all that type of stuff. It's just what I kind of find interesting, and I love all those films. So diving into what I actually have right in front of me. So background's really important because that's the first thing that I'm going to open on my computer. From that point, I basically just have a set of post-it notes based on what I'm actually focusing on at that point. So, and also a lot of the time it does repeat itself as well. So if I just move this around here. So the first one that I've got there is basically remember who you are now. So remember who you are now is so important, because remembering who I am now compared to what I used to be is different, as worlds apart. I'm now a dad, I'm now a husband, I'm a director of a big team, I've got a big community, and it's really important for me to understand on a day-to-day basis that I'm representing more than just myself. And also that is just a good kind of reminder for me to look back at who I potentially used to be and where I was in life compared to where I am now. So I almost kind of feel a little bit of gratitude and stuff on a day-to-day basis. So I basically have that as the first post-it note. So it's remember who I am. So how am I responding? How am I interacting? How am I treating people? And how am I treating myself on a day-to-day basis? Because it's in the now what's important. The next one is basically where it says product, YouTube, and metrics. So this is basically something that I've always done. I've always written down the 3 things that I need to focus on heavily in a sustained period of time. So for example, right now, a lot of my time is spent based on the smart scaling and developing real high kind of level content for our full community in terms of resources, strategies, trainings, and everything. So I basically have that on a day-to-day basis. So number 1 is product, right? Am I making sure that I'm prioritizing developing my product? The next one says YouTube. Rationale for that is because I'm really obviously invested into building out this channel now, and I'm really enjoying long form content because I love short form, don't get me wrong, but I like to basically explain stuff in long form. So that's a key focus for me. And then the next one is basically metrics, and that is basically a representation to me to turn around and say, do not make decisions based on your subjective feeling or emotion. Never make a decision based on, oh, I feel this. What are the numbers saying? When it comes to acquisition, sales, paid media, retention, performance, whatever it is, what are the numbers saying? What is the data saying? That is where you need to make decisions from. From that point, we've got devil in the details. So that is basically an accumulation and an encapsulation of everything that I'm doing at the moment. So when it comes to product development, when it comes to YouTubes, when it comes to metrics, when it comes to team management, when it comes to everything, it's just really kind of making sure that I'm going to the level of detail in terms of explanations and breakdowns. So for people to have a true understanding of what I'm obviously trying to get across. And obviously, main thing for me is my mission at the moment is to build the highest value products and programs in the fitness industry. And I will not stop until I have. For example, I did a new module the other day, probably took me 60 hours to do 4 documents. That's how detailed it is. But again, it's one of them ones where that's my mission at the moment, is to make sure that there is no competition out there that is going into the level of detail that I am and creating as much understanding, awareness and performance as we are in this company. So devil in the detail is so important. Then the standard one is work harder. Literally just work harder. There's going to be times in business where you're not going to want to turn up and you're not going to want to do it. And especially when I've been here since 5 o'clock in the morning and it gets to maybe 3, 4 o'clock and I'm like, oh, I could just leave and go home now at 4:45. Whereas in reality, I know I need to be home for half 5 to obviously cook food for my family. But sometimes I'll just need to look at that in that last hour and a half, because you'll be shocked at what you can do in 90 minutes. And I always remind myself of that, is when it comes to the end of the day, I'm like flagging and I'm like, it's 90 minutes, work harder, just get it done, right? You're going to go home and you're going to chill. And that's just basically the final reminder for me. So in my immediate environment, obviously I've got the blue painting to represent being neutral, the red painting to represent obviously kind of resilience and fighting back. I then have remember who I am. So that's basically just a mantra for where I am in life now compared to where I was and who I need to be and how I need to act. Then I've got the main 3 things that I'm going to focus on, the specifics associated with executing those 3 things, and then just a bit of old school, just work hard. The next bit of artwork that I have in the office is this Barbarian King, and it's actually Conor McGregor if you see UFC on the bottom, but I just really like the actual print and I liked getting it kind of big so it's impactful. The positioning of this one is really, really important. So I walk through the office door over there, I walk straight down there in the morning and I come and make a coffee because I can't function without coffee. And it's the first thing that I look at every single morning, and it's just a bit of a reminder for me in terms of how I've got to where I am now and what is kind of my trait. So I'm not a prim and proper person in any way, shape or form. I've not been born into this in any way. So for example, I know that a lot of people might have been given quite a lot of opportunities, or they might have had some like money in terms of equity and stuff from families, but for me I've just basically completely and utterly built this from scratch. I've built the coach consultant, the businesses and the life and everything that I have now from sheer will and determination in essence. Obviously now it's a lot more strategy and technical and everything else onto that side, but the bottom line has always been, it's been a bit of a barbarian approach. It's been a barbarian approach to come in and attack, take the wins, take the losses, work through the obstacles, and that's just kind of a bit of a reminder for me to look back on going, that's who I used to be, this is who I am now, that's what's got me from where I am to where I am now, but it's also going to be part of me to get to where I want to go. And just as a reminder that I've got that kind of instinct to be able to work through anything. It's if it's a problem, I'm going to work through it. If it's an obstacle, I'm going to break through it. And that's almost just like a bit of a motivating factor for me to turn around and go like, look, yes, who I am now and what I do in terms of my job is very different to what got me to where I am now. The core principle remains the same. Be a barbarian, be a conqueror, fight for it, have that work ethic, have that determination, keep turning up. And it's just a good representation to quickly just look at before I make that coffee and sit down before I get into an environment where I can get into kind of focus. Again, just this is so specific to me personally, but just little things like this really do make a big difference. And then finally, last but not least, we have the world map. Because at the end of the day, guys, if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or whatever you're wanting to do it, you should always have that big picture thinking like, look, I know without question, like in reality, I am never ever going to take over the world business consultancy, marketing and everything else onto that side. But it doesn't mean I don't aspire to do that. And for me, that has a multiple different reasons. So if I create the business and life that I want, it allows me to do things that I want to do. So traveling to me is really, really important. Seeing new things, meeting new people, trying new foods, being in different environments, and everything associated with just kind of getting out of this environment and going and experiencing different places. So for me, like that represents like a true passion of mine, which is travel and experience, but it also represents like the main thing that all business owners should be aspiring to do, and that is obviously world domination, right? As corny as it sounds, it's just a bit of a reminder. So when I'm coming in, I'm creating content, or we have a boardroom meeting here, or I have an operations meeting here with Rob, for example. It's just a bit of a subliminal reminder of like, look, this is why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I want to dominate the world, right? Because that's what all business owners should do. But then secondly, because if I do this and if I work, I'm going to be able to experience more of this world and appreciate what we have out there, which isn't just in these 4 walls. So again, that's just a really good reminder for me personally in terms of what I want to work towards, but professionally, like again, the big aspiration. So again, that's just a little easy, quick tour associated with everything to do with my office, guys, and I think it's so important. If you enjoyed this type of video, let me know. I'm happy to do loads of different types of personal approaches and little triggers and situations and environments that I set up to allow me to work at kind of top level output and performance, and also again devil in the details. So hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you next time. Probably gonna be more business, marketing, sales, acquisition from that point, don't get me wrong, but I just wanted to break it up with something a bit different. See you then.